young soldier looked at the scars on her arms and laughed. "War wounds?" he mocked. "Or maybe a kitchen accident?" Rebecca never answered, just quietly continued her work. But an hour later, when the base commander general saw her, he froze. His voice filled the entire barracks. "Ghost!" And in that moment, everyone realized those scars didn't just point to wounds, but to legends. From which city around the world are you watching today? If this story moves you, please subscribe to Rising Life Stories to help us share more hidden heroism stories. Rebecca Williams was a quiet 45-year-old woman who worked at the supply depot at Fort Bragg. Every morning at 6 a.m. she came to work, organized material distribution, completed paperwork, and returned home at 6 p.m. She had maintained the same routine for 15 years. She had deep scars on her arms that stretched from her wrists to her shoulders. These scars were visible even through fabric. Irregular lines, some deeper, some surface level, but all permanent. Rebecca usually wore long-sleeved shirts, but in summer they were inevitably visible. Other personnel at the supply depot called Rebecca Ms. Williams, respectful but distant. Rebecca never socialized, never joined birthday parties, never participated in after-work activities. She just came, did her work, and left. When new recruits came to Fort Bragg, most didn't even notice Rebecca. She was just another face at the supply window, but some would notice the scars, and curiosity was inevitable. "What happened to your arms?" young soldiers would ask occasionally. Rebecca's response was always the same, delivered in a flat, matter-of-fact tone. "Car accident. Long time ago." It was simple, believable, and designed to discourage further questions. Most accepted this explanation and moved on, but some could be more insensitive. This morning, a new batch of recruits had come to Fort Bragg. They had completed basic training and were now going to receive assignments for specialized training. Among them was Private Jason Martinez, a 19-year-old from Texas with an overconfident and attention-seeking personality. Martinez and his friends had come to the supply depot to get equipment. Rebecca was routinely processing paperwork, distributing items with usual efficiency. "Next," Rebecca said when it was Martinez's turn. Martinez approached the window with a swagger that spoke of someone who'd never encountered real authority or consequence. Rebecca's scars immediately caught his attention. "Whoa, what happened to you?" Martinez asked loudly, ensuring his friends could hear. "Looks like you went through a meat grinder." Rebecca looked up briefly, met his eyes, then returned to her paperwork. "Equipment list, please." But Martinez wasn't finished. "Seriously, did you get in a fight with a blender? Or maybe you tried to pet a tiger?" His friends chuckled behind him. Rebecca processed his request efficiently, handed him his gear, and said simply, "Next." Over the next few days, Martinez and his friends had frequent interactions with Rebecca. Each time, Martinez would invent new jokes about the scars. "Hey, scar lady," he would say, approaching the window. "Got any more battle wounds from filing paperwork?" Or, "Bet you could tell some stories. Like that time you wrestled with a stapler and lost." Rebecca never responded to the taunts. She would process their requests, maintain professional courtesy, and move to the next person. But other depot staff began to notice. Sergeant Linda Torres, the depot's assistant supervisor, had worked with Rebecca for 8 years. She didn't know anything about Rebecca's past, but she respected the woman's integrity and work ethic. "Rebecca, these kids are being very rude to you," Torres said one day. "Do you want to report it?" No need," Rebecca replied calmly. "They're just young. They'll learn." But Torres was concerned. Nobody deserves to be treated like that, especially... She hesitated. "Especially what?" "Especially whatever your scars are from. It's none of their business." Rebecca appreciated the support, but she preferred to avoid conflict. Years of intentional invisibility had taught her that engagement often led to unwanted attention, and attention led to questions she couldn't answer. Meanwhile, Martinez's behavior was escalating. His jokes became more elaborate, more public, more designed to humiliate. "I heard she got those scars in a kitchen accident," he told a group of soldiers during lunch. "Probably couldn't handle making toast without setting herself on fire." "Maybe she was a stunt double for action movies," another suggested. "You know, the kind where they need someone who looks already beat up." The jokes spread throughout the young recruit population. Rebecca became known as Scar Lady, or Battle Wounds, among the newer soldiers. But older NCOs and officers didn't notice, or ignored it. Rebecca endured it all with stoic silence. She had dealt with far worse than teenage cruelty, and this was just another test of her patience and commitment to her new life. But unknown to everyone, including Rebecca, things were about to change dramatically. General Robert Iron Mike Harrison was Fort Bragg's commanding officer. He had 35 years of military service, multiple combat deployments, and a reputation for excellence. He was conducting his monthly inspection of base facilities, and today, the supply depot was on his list. General Harrison had seen everything military life could offer. He'd commanded troops in Iraq, Afghanistan, and several classified operations. Very few things surprised him anymore. But today would be different. Rebecca was working her usual station when General Harrison entered the depot. She looked up briefly as protocol demanded, acknowledged his presence with a respectful nod, and returned to her work. Standard procedure for enlisted personnel. General Harrison was reviewing inventory logs with Sergeant Torres when something caught his peripheral vision. A woman at the supply window helping a young soldier with equipment. Something about her movement, her posture, He looked more carefully. Rebecca was reaching for a high shelf item, and her sleeve had pulled back slightly, revealing more of the scars on her arm. But it wasn't the scars that made General Harrison's blood run cold. It was the way she moved, efficient, precise, every motion calculated for maximum effect with minimum wasted energy. Muscle memory from years of training that couldn't be hidden, even after 15 years of civilian work. And then she turned slightly, and General Harrison saw her profile. His breath caught. "Impossible," he whispered. Sergeant Torres noticed his reaction. "Sir, is everything all right?" General Harrison couldn't answer, because standing 20 feet away, wearing a supply depot uniform and helping a young recruit with his gear, was a woman he'd personally recommended for the Medal of Honor 15 years ago. A woman who, according to official records, had died in a classified operation in Afghanistan in 2009. A woman whose call sign had been Ghost, the most lethal sniper in special operations history. General Harrison approached the supply window slowly, his mind racing. It couldn't be her. Ghost was dead. He'd attended her memorial service. He'd personally delivered the folded flag to her mother. But as he got closer, there was no doubt. Rebecca sensed someone approaching and looked up from her paperwork. When she saw General Harrison standing directly in front of her window, her professional mask slipped for just a fraction of a second. Their eyes met. And in that instant, 15 years of carefully constructed civilian identity cracked. General Harrison saw recognition in her eyes. More than that, he saw the unmistakable bearing of a soldier who had operated at the highest levels of military excellence. "Rebecca Williams," he said quietly, reading her name tag. "Yes, sir," she replied, her voice steady but wary. General Harrison studied her face for a long moment. Then, almost unconsciously, he began to speak the way he would address a fellow officer. "How long have you been assigned to this depot?" 15 years, sir." "And before that?" Rebecca hesitated. This was dangerous territory. "Civilian employment, sir." But General Harrison wasn't satisfied. Something about her voice, her bearing, the way she stood at attention without realizing it. And then Martinez approached the window. "Hey, Scar Lady," Martinez called out loudly, causing several heads to turn. "Got my ammo requisition ready?" The irreverent tone, the casual disrespect, the mocking nickname, it all happened in front of General Harrison. Rebecca's face didn't change expression, but General Harrison saw something flash in her eyes, something cold, something dangerous, something he'd seen before in Afghanistan. "Ghost!" The word escaped his lips before he could stop it. The single word rang through the supply depot like a gunshot. Every conversation stopped. Every head turned. Even the sound of equipment being moved seemed to pause. Martinez, who had been reaching for his requisition, froze mid-motion. His hand hung in the air as he tried to process what he'd just heard. Rebecca's carefully maintained civilian facade shattered completely. Her posture straightened into perfect military bearing. Her eyes became sharp, focused, dangerous. "Sir," she said quietly, and her voice carried an authority that hadn't been there moments before. General Harrison took a step back, overwhelmed by the confirmation of what he'd suspected. "Staff Sergeant Rebecca Ghost Coleman, supposedly KIA Afghanistan, 2009. The name hit the depot like a shockwave. Several of the older NCOs recognized it immediately. Ghost was a legend in special operations circles, a sniper so effective, so precise, that enemy forces had put a massive bounty on her head. Martinez's mouth opened and closed without sound. His friends behind him looked equally stunned. "I think there's been a mistake, sir," Rebecca said carefully. "I'm just supply personnel." But General Harrison wasn't backing down. 127 confirmed kills, 3 Silver Stars, Purple Heart, Medal of Honor, the most lethal sniper in U.S. military history. Each word fell like a hammer blow in the silent depot. The woman who held Hill 247 for 18 hours against overwhelming odds, who saved an entire platoon from annihilation, who earned the nickname Ghost because the enemy never saw her coming. Rebecca stood perfectly still, but those who knew what to look for could see the subtle changes. The way her weight shifted to the balls of her feet, the way her hands, previously relaxed, now held ready positions, the way her eyes continuously scanned for threats and exits. "Sir," she said again, but this time it wasn't the voice of a supply clerk. It was the voice of someone who had commanded respect in the most dangerous places on Earth. Martinez finally found his voice. You're the Ghost? The sniper everyone talks about?" Rebecca looked at him directly for the first time since the conversation began. When their eyes met, Martinez felt something he'd never experienced before in his short military career, the presence of someone who had genuinely faced death and emerged victorious. "Those scars," Martinez whispered, understanding dawning. "They're not from any car accident." "Shrapnel," General Harrison answered for her, "from the IED that nearly killed her during her final mission. The mission where she was officially declared KIA to protect her identity. The supply depot had transformed from a routine military facility into something resembling a shrine. Word was spreading rapidly throughout the base. Soldiers were arriving to see if the rumors were true. Rebecca realized her 15-year cover was blown completely. There was no going back to anonymity. "General," she said quietly, "perhaps we could continue this conversation somewhere more private." "Of course." General Harrison gestured toward the depot office. "Sergeant Torres, secure this area. No unauthorized personnel." As they moved toward the office, Martinez stepped forward. "Ma'am, I'm sorry. I didn't know." Rebecca paused and looked at him. "You couldn't have known, but maybe this will teach you not to judge people by their scars." In the office, with the door closed, General Harrison faced Rebecca directly. "How?" he asked simply. Rebecca sat down, for the first time in 15 years, looking every bit the seasoned combat veteran she was. "The mission went bad," she began. "Intel was wrong. We walked into an ambush. My spotter was killed immediately. I was trapped on that hill for 18 hours, surrounded, with no communication. The after-action report said you were KIA. I should have been. The IED that got me, I was unconscious for 3 days. When I woke up in a field hospital, they told me the explosion had been so intense that they couldn't find any remains. Command made a decision. To declare you dead. To give me a choice, stay dead and disappear, or come back and face a lifetime of being a target. Every terrorist organization in the world wanted Ghost dead. My real identity was compromised." General Harrison nodded slowly. "So they gave you a new life." "Rebecca Williams, complete background, education records, work history. I chose supply work because it was quiet. And you've been here 15 years. It was peaceful, safe. I could contribute without drawing attention." General Harrison looked at her with a mixture of admiration and sadness. "Do you know what your death did to morale? You were a symbol. Soldiers who never met you still tell stories about Ghost." Rebecca smiled sadly. "Maybe it's better that way. Legends are more powerful than reality. But you're not dead. You're here, and you've been serving honorably for 15 more years. As a supply clerk. Service is service." When Rebecca and General Harrison emerged from the office, the depot had filled with soldiers. Word had spread throughout Fort Bragg like wildfire. Senior NCOs, officers, and enlisted personnel had all found reasons to visit the supply depot. Martinez was still there, but his demeanor had completely changed. He stood at attention when Rebecca approached, his earlier cockiness replaced by genuine respect and no small amount of shame. "Ma'am," he said formally, "I owe you an apology. A real one." Rebecca studied him for a moment. "What did you learn today, Private?" That I don't know anything about the people around me. That scars tell stories I'm not smart enough to understand. That I've been acting like an idiot." "Good start. What else?" Martinez thought carefully. "That respect isn't about rank or age or what someone looks like. It's about what they've done and who they are." Rebecca nodded approvingly. "Better. And the most important lesson?" I'm not sure, ma'am. The most important lesson is that everyone you meet is fighting battles you know nothing about. Everyone has scars, some visible, some not. Your job as a soldier, as a human being, is to treat people with dignity regardless of what you think you know about them. The crowd of soldiers listening to this exchange absorbed every word. This wasn't just a lecture about respect. It was a master class in leadership from one of the most legendary soldiers in modern military history. General Harrison stepped forward. "Staff Sergeant Coleman, or do you prefer Ms. Williams?" "Rebecca is fine, sir." "Rebecca, I have a proposition. The Army needs experienced instructors, particularly for our sniper training programs. Would you consider—" "No, sir," Rebecca interrupted gently. "Thank you, but no. That part of my life is over. But your knowledge, your experience, can be shared in other ways." She looked around at the assembled soldiers, her gaze settling on Martinez and his friends. "I'm happy here. This work matters too. Maybe not in the same way, but it matters." Over the following weeks, Rebecca remained in the supply depot, but young soldiers began seeking her out for advice about character and leadership. Martinez became her most frequent visitor, their relationship evolving from antagonistic to mentor-student. "Do you ever regret giving up being Ghost?" he asked one day. "The identity was just a name," Rebecca replied. "I stayed here because this is where I could do the most good without doing harm. Every piece of equipment I've distributed has helped keep soldiers safe." These conversations began to change the depot's culture. Respect replaced ridicule. Months later, the supply depot became a pilgrimage site. Rebecca developed informal mentorship sessions discussing leadership and service. Martinez had transformed completely from arrogant recruit to thoughtful soldier. "Tell them about Hill 247, he would ask. "No," Rebecca always replied. "That story belongs to soldiers who didn't come home." Instead, she taught about small moments, checking equipment, looking out for fellow soldiers. "Rebecca Williams has influenced more lives than Ghost ever did," she told one group. "Legacy is about daily choices nobody sees." A year later, Martinez prepared for his first deployment. He visited Rebecca on his final day. "Thank you for teaching me what it means to be a soldier," he said. "When I first met you, I thought being a soldier was about being tough, proving myself," Martinez continued. "Now I know it's about service." "What did your friends call you?" he asked finally. Rebecca smiled. "Just Rebecca. Because that's who I am, a person trying to do the right thing." As Martinez left, Rebecca reflected. She had found purpose without violence, legacy without legend. The scars reminded her of battles fought, but the soldiers she mentored were victories that truly mattered. And so, a woman who was mocked for her scars proved not only her legendary past, but also her present value when her true identity was revealed. Rebecca "Ghost" Coleman transformed from legendary sniper to wise mentor, achieving her greatest victory, making others' lives better. Because true heroism is found not in dramatic moments, but in daily choices. Not in headlines, but in quiet moments. Not in recognition, but in service. Have you ever thought about it? How many people around you are there, seemingly ordinary but actually having lived extraordinary experiences? Maybe their scars are visible, maybe invisible, but they all carry stories worth valuing. At Rising Life Stories, we celebrate these hidden heroes, because sometimes the greatest legends are found in the quietest lives. From which city are you watching today? Share in the comments, and if this story touched you, don't forget to subscribe, because everyone deserves to be seen for who they really are.